Yeah, the camera is on, so we can get started. I'm taking over the meeting today because Fausto and Patricia are up north. And I'm really so gratified to see so many people here. And I'm glad it's not raining because it makes it a lot easier for us. So the first thing we'll do is take attendance.
Okay. Peter Amato.
Present.
Diane Andelman.
Here.
Kate Benoit.
Here.
Michael Bunk.
Here.
Marilyn Curtis. Maureen DeBeguer.
Here.
Ruth Dries.
Here.
David Fornes. George Franklin. Dan Gladstone.
Here.
Richard Handelsman.
Here.
Laura Henley. Jackie Carlin is not here. Kelly Jensen.
Here.
Bobby Levin.
Here.
Joyce Reese.
Here.
Flora Simpson. Jeffrey Skeen.
Here.
Jerry Zatowski.
Here.
Gloria Tort.
Here.
And Mary Walsh.
Here.
All but one member is present. Of the officers, we have Ed Grossman.
Here.
Stuart Richland.
Here.
David Boaz.
Hold on, I got to put
David is here.
David Fornes
Okay, so David Fornes is here. We have all of the members of the executive board here and four of the officers.
Great, so let's get started. I just would like to say that you all remember the phrase, I may not agree with what you say, but you have the right to say it. And so let's be civilized about all of this. People have some strong views either for or against. The purpose of this meeting is to cast an affirmative vote on the material that you have in your hand. And that all the technical questions that you may have, Donald Foster will be here to kind of answer it so that it will, because it is somewhat technical and some people are not quite aware of some of the things that may be in there. Donald will be able to answer it and try to make it clear for you. Since I'm the person in charge, I also would ask you not to whisper to each other, and that if you want to say something, please raise your hand and you'll be recognized. As a former teacher, this is the way it should be done. Okay, because I'm running the meeting, I'd like to make a few comments about this. The basic concept of the deal that we have here, I am for it. I am for it because of the fact that it will save the people of Century Village a lot of money. The idea is that the canals have to be cleaned out. It costs a lot of money. If we can get our builder, the home builder, to contribute, that's fine, and that's exactly what we need, and it means that the people living in Century Village will not have to pay the whole price. The other additional aspect of this is that when the project is completed, that they are going to be, their homeowner association is going to have them pay 15% to a fund which will constantly fill the bank for the cost of cleaning the canals over a period of time. Now, if you are not aware, nature, the weather in Florida is always attacking the canals. And it's got to be cleaned out. Right now it hasn't been done for a long time, so the initial cost is very, very expensive. Either people in Century Village pay for the whole thing, or we get money from the builder who wants to save money in the young end, because if he digs his own trench for his own water disbursement, it goes under Habit Hill and down Okeechobee, and we're gonna suffer for that for a long period of time. So logically, this is the only way to go. So I'm gonna turn the mic over to Donald if he has any technical questions he'd like to cover first, to make it easy for the people in the audience to understand, and then we'll take your hands.
Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to ramble for a few minutes on drainage generally in Century Village. When I'm done, I'm going to pass this on to your attorney, Rod Tennyson, who's on the phone, and he has a brief presentation for you as well. When I came to work for you in, 2016, one of the first things Rod said to me was that the most critical piece of infrastructure on this property is drainage. His own words, we're living on the original Florida swampland. So that's something we always were looking at over the years. Fortunately, a big piece of that work had already been done, the shoreline restoration project, which was a $2 million plus project, and it's held up pretty well. The next thing was, and this was kind of my first project working here, was repair and resleeving of all the outfall sections of underground drainage pipe. Basically, these are the 100 feet of pipe that sticks out into our main lakes. That work happened over a course of about 2 years, and it happened in Stratford, Plymouth, Stratford, Chatham, Berkshire, Dover, and and Somerset. So those sections were re-sleeved, which basically means they'll last forever. In the course of that project, we found some surprises. In the Stratford section, we had found that some genius years ago had decided to run an irrigation line on the inside of the pipe for 300 feet, and that was catching all kinds of junk that was clogging the line. I remember pulling a bicycle out of there, a shopping cart, a tree trunk. You probably forgot, but I took pictures of all this. They were in my report. In another section in Sussex, which was a constantly flooded area, we found an outfall section of pipe that had been completely clogged with concrete, poured concrete for about 20, 30 feet. And once we got that cleaned out to the tune of about 20K, the worst flooded area in Century Village became the least flooded area. It was just something we found in the course of looking at our drainage system. Another part was 2 drainage pipes that are underneath Fairway Street by the cable office. One day I got it in my head to crawl in those pipes, low water time, and found that they had been severely deteriorated. And above that was the only road that leads to Southampton. So we got those 2 pipes repaired and resleeved. There was some kind of agreement worked out with Mr. Walden, the previous owner of the golf course property, that he was going to pay for half. We never saw a penny of that. But frankly, from my point, I didn't care, as long as it got done. Next part of this long-term project was, over the course of 2 summers, we got every bit of underground storm drain pipe, and there's miles and miles of it, inspected, cleaned out, and in some cases repaired. Most of the repairs, I would say, are from the Atlantic Broadband installation back in 2018, 2017. So that was actually a pretty good project. Well, one of the things we found that for the most part, the drainage pipes underneath our community are in remarkably good shape, being that they're 50 years old plus. Next part, and most recently, the piece of drainage canal that extends from the bottom of Century Village out to Okeechobee Boulevard was redredged. Most of you can remember that. Dan handled that job. That was pretty key, because that's basically the plug to our bathtub, and it's now flowing pretty freely. Now what's ahead of us is North and South Canal. These are critical sinks for our drainage. That's what initially holds water for the property when you have a heavy rain. Those canals have, I would say, over the years, filled in maybe 50%. They have less than half of the capacity that they previously had to accept water, and that's a problem. Now, the work on those canals has already begun. You don't see that work because the work is happening in lawyers' offices. In both cases, there are issues with title. who owns pieces of these canals. In some cases, like in South Canal, UCO owns a piece, but not all. So in both cases and separately, lawyers are working on settling those title issues so that UCO will come to own these, or some entity will be responsible for dredging it out. So that's going on as we speak, and you'll hear more about that over the coming months. After that, it's time to dredge. We have an estimate of between $1 million and $1.5 million for South Canal. I have no doubt that North Canal will be about the same. So that's pretty much an overview of what we've been doing with drainage over the past 6 to 8 years. Before I pass it on to Ron, does anyone have any questions about what I just reported? Hi, Judy.
Hi. You mentioned that you went to...
Speak up.
You mentioned that you went to several different
Wait, Judy,
associations.
wait, pass this down.
Guys, I'm gonna, just so she doesn't have to get up, I'm just gonna repeat her question. Oh, she has a mic. Here you go. Go for it, Judy.
What about the sleeves being replaced at the other associations? You mentioned 5 or 6 of them that have
Right.
been done.
Those outfall sections are inspected, and if they are deteriorated, they get re-sleeved. And I know you're talking about your own which empties out onto West Canal. I don't remember if we did any sleeving there, but if it's needed, it'll get done. And they go back about 100 feet. All right? Hi, Jerry.
Donald, you mentioned something about the North Canal has to be dredged as well? Okay.
I think North Canal's in worse shape than South Canal,
Okay.
personally.
Who will be paying for the dredging? Is it going to be the same deal, or is it going to fall all on UCO or the residents to pay for that
Well,
canal?
this is up in the air at the moment, Jerry, right now. There's some county involvement there, we think. Now, the lead on that up until now has been WPRF's attorney, Laura Coffey, and now Rod is getting involved in that. This is going to be, right now, a negotiation between us and the county, because, not to go into great detail, but the canal itself was originally owned by an entity called Century Utilities, which is the water and drainage system that was installed by the developer decades ago. That entity was sold to Palm Beach County, and Palm Beach County just forgot about it. If you click on the actual canal of North Canal, it comes up no owner. Nobody owns it. So that's something that needs to get sorted out, and we're going to start that process about now. Yes, Dave?
Well, if many people remember, we used to have a committee that fought very bad against whatever. I spoke this week, I spoke to the president of Gulf's Edge, and hardly to my surprise, they were very, very much for all the projection that's coming up. That's a big surprise, but they say that anything else is better than the situation
Yeah,
today.
if you remember from the last delegate assembly, a resident of Gulf's Edge got up and said, enough already, we're looking out on Wild Kingdom.
Yes, I
There's
just
people
want-
living in there, so I kind of take that.
Yeah, but I
Take
got
that
it.
point.
Yeah, I got it from the president itself,
Sure.
from the horse's mother. They said several times. So apparently we have to really agree to this. But about the negotiation, we're holding all the cards for many, many years. They couldn't move because of us. So about the negotiation, are we really taking advantage of our power?
Dan, I'm far from even closest to being a qualified negotiator. However, we have an attorney negotiating on our behalf, and I trust him implicitly.
Okay.
Sorry, Rod, I didn't mean to embarrass you.
Hi, Jean Berman from Northampton Inn.
Hi.
Hi, yeah, I have a couple quick questions here. Okay, is this better?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So, what happens if Reflection Bay decides to change the amount of lakes in their system? That is, like they decide to fill something in and...
Actually, I
fill out or
believe
something
that's
like-
already happened, but in the opposite direction. They've altered their proposed plan to increase the amount of drainage on the property, and I believe that's why you're seeing the yellow signs up around the property and on Century Boulevard.
Anytime there's a fundamental change to a plan that's been approved by the county, they've got to go back to the well and get approval. Am I catching that right, Ron? Yeah, Ron agrees.
Okay,
Yeah. What Ron basically just said is they've improved, from our point of view, they've improved the project. They've increased the amount of capacity to hold water.
okay.
And Ron's going to get into that more when it's his turn.
Okay, another question, which is, it was mentioned previously that there had been failure to get clear title on the dam in Weir.
Yes.
And that was due to WPRF failing to provide that.
Well, I wouldn't attribute it to any particular...
Is there any recourse on that?
Yes, and the recourse is happening as we speak. As part of this proposed agreement, the Kolter Homes has agreed to take on the task of settling all of those claims, those quiet title situations. So that's actually happening. That agreement's been, part of the agreement's been signed. So that's important, that we own the thing that we're looking to improve, particularly since the thing we're looking to improve will keep our feet dry.
Okay, last question is, what happens if Reflection Bay, obviously they're gonna be building all of these townhomes,
Right.
and then their HOA is gonna be funding part of
It'll be baked into their
the
documents.
maintenance. However, what happens if Reflection Bay is not successful and they don't get, a lot of them, and maybe the thing shuts down or something like that? Are we left holding the bag?
I think that's something that's built into agreement, so I'm gonna just let Rod answer that one. Rod, did you catch that question? Rod, are you there?
Yes, it is vacant. If Reflection Bay was to belly up, they would probably, then a new developer would have to come in and finish the project, but that new developer would be bound by our agreement and by our drafted provisions of the Declaration of Restrictions for the HOA. So that's the key thing, and that was a big part of our negotiation. We needed to have a declaration of restrictions in which we actually dictated what the language would be in that declaration, and that it would have to be recorded. And that's now part of the agreement.
Thank you. Does somebody else?
That's it? You threw your list? Thank you. Those were good questions. Anybody else? Hello, sir. May I know your name, please?
Yeah, Dr. Jerry David from Stratford B.
Hi, Dr. Davis. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Okay, one of the key aspects is the engineering report, and
Yep.
that underlies, whatever we're doing. I noticed in the first paragraph that Reflection Bay only gave us an estimate of 4.81 cubic feet. And it says that, our office has not received formal water management calculations. That's key, because if it goes above that, then our agreement is faulty. So that's question one.
Well, let's do it one by one.
Sure.
My understanding is that possibility is baked into this agreement, but again, I'm gonna let Rod answer that one as well, okay?
Okay.
Did you catch that question, Rod?
Was it the reference 81 cubic feet per second?
Correct.
I didn't quite catch it.
Good, restate your questions.
Okay, the question is that in the first paragraph of the engineering report, it says, let me just quote it, "Please note that to date, our office has not reviewed formal water management calculations. Our preliminary review is based on the premise that discharge would be limited to 4.81 cubic feet." What happens if it's more than that? They did not give us a formal calculation. That's just sort of an estimate.
Okay, so, Rod, what Dr. Davis is referring to is the Jordan Nichols report from 2017, and I think Rod has already answered for that.
Yes, keep in mind that Jordan Nichols, professional engineer that we retained back in 2017, was doing an analysis for us by a different developer, that was Waldman. And his development would have had just 7.16 acres of retention ponds. So Mr. Nichols went in and did an analysis based on the 7.16 acres. And in his report, he basically says that we have storage capacity with, even if it's just 7.16 acres, not to flood Century Village. Now, if based on Palm Beach County regulations at that time in 2017. A new development, Kolter Homes, their retention ponds are up to 12.62 acres, which means that we even have more of a safety valve to prevent flooding in the village. And we have in our agreement a limitation of the total amount of discharge, which is going to be a 4.812 cubic per second of water. That is not just a contractual obligation of Kolter Homes. That is Palm Beach County's requirement as part of any Palm Beach County approval of their project.
Okay,
So we have two enforcement mechanisms to keep that at 8.1 cubic feet under our contract. Number one, and number two, Palm Beach County. So I think we have plenty of assurances we can keep them at that number.
Okay, so you.
All right, so Dr. Davis has a follow-up question.
So you're saying basically that that's the maximum that they can do according to Palm Beach County?
That's correct. That's
Okay,
maximum.
okay, fine, okay.
Question number two.
Question number two. In the overall contract, it says that their maximum that they have to pay is $750,000, I believe. Correct? Right. What happens if there's a cost overrun? They're limited to that, and we then end up paying much more percentage-wise?
Rod, Dr. Davis's question was about what if there's a cost overrun that exceeds the maximum number pinpointed by Simmons and White, which is 1.5 million.
Yes, if we go above that number, now we're relying on our engineers. He's in it says a maximum of 1.5 in terms of the cost, a minimum of 1 million. We rely on that. I think that's a reasonable number. I've talked with all the engineers. I don't know if many of you know this. I have an engineering background myself, and so I talk to these engineers and try to get a feel for where they're at. I understand their vocabulary, and we can communicate quite well. If, however, we go above the 1.5 million, which is not anticipated, and remember, we control these costs. We're going to be running these construction contracts on what we do, and so we have a lot of control over what the final cost is going to be. Then we would have to cover that extra cost because the Kolter is capped at $750,000 in terms of their contribution. But I do not anticipate that. I rely on these engineers. I think they know what they're talking about, and they've given us a max of 1.5 million.
Okay, but again, we don't have a contract that says that. The point is that perhaps we should have a clause that if there's a cost overrun, then they have to pay more, which means percentage-wise, they would then have to pay more. Now, okay, we are relying on the current estimate, so probably it won't happen. But if it does, why should we be left holding the bag?
Well, because this is the debt deal that we've got. We've been doing this for almost 6 months, and we've been over this. We've been through 5 drafts, and I think if you go renegotiate the contract right now, I think you'll die. I don't think we'll get a deal. That's why it's my recommendation that we do this deal. I think it's the best one we can get, and I think we've relied on our engineers. And what else can you do?
Okay,
I could add to that, Dr. Davis. There's no covering every eventuality, and any agreement, the argument can be made that it could be more advantageous for our side, but that could go on till the end of time. As far as Rod's mentioning that these construction projects will be overseen by UCO, everyone should know that when these projects come to pass, regardless of this decision, the oversight will be by an engineering firm. It's not going to be me. It's not going to be Dr. Handelsman. It'll be an engineer overseeing every bit of this. This is critical.
yeah, but again, that's a very simple clause. I mean, we have the estimates. That's a simple clause that can be put into the contract.
I'm sure Rod will take it under advisement.
In terms of Reflection Bay, they really need us. They want to start building. The longer it takes them to build, the more it costs. And with such a simple clause, I don't know Reflection Bay. I would hope that they would go for it, and then we would be protected.
Dr. Davis, I think Rod would take that question under consideration.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Anybody else? Hello, Dr. H.
What that person wants,
wants to change is one word in the agreement. At the bottom of page 1, it says that Reflection Bay will pay the lesser of 50% or $750K. Change lesser to greater, and your problem is solved, if they agree.
And if in fact we agree it's a problem. So,
And as Attorney Tennyson said, the back of the last page of the handout was written 6 years ago when Waldman was going to expand from 4 to 7. And as Mr. Tennyson said, at that time, the capacity was more than enough to handle any 5, 10, and 100. Now they are expanding from 7 to 12, nearly double. So there won't be any.
yeah, just to put everything in Donald-friendly terms, they've increased the size of the sponge and decreased the size of the faucet. I don't know if that made sense, but
Yeah.
they did in my crazy brain. All right, any other questions before I let Rod have the floor?
Yes.
Hit me.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Mr. Tennyson. I want to start with
Speak to the mic.
technical
I can hear you.
Ed, speak in the mic.
Usually everybody could hear me, but who knows?
No, we can't.
Hello? Now you can hear me. Again, good morning, everybody. I'm glad you all showed up. And I'm glad, very happy that Mr. Tennyson is here. Because, starting with a small technical point, our bylaws say that before any contract, before any hiring of a professional for something like this, over $2,000 has to be approved by the delegate assembly. I did a quick check. We certainly paid a lot more. It never came to the delegate assembly. And if those of you who read my article 2 months ago, this has been done ass backwards. We should have had this first, get the approval, and then spend the money. Next, from a financial standpoint, I'm looking at a quick look, and I don't profess to be an attorney, but the contract for the maintenance looks like a mirror copy of what we have now, but in reverse, and it looks like it's open for a lot of questions. The next thing about this maintenance that everybody is shouting about, I'd like to have anybody in this room tell us what we have paid for the last 10 years for the maintenance of the canal, the one canal that's involved. Can anybody answer that question? No. Next question. When we started with this business way back when, we got some indication of what the physical premises will look like. I heard the voice of the gentleman from Cutler, and he says, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this. Where is it? I went personally to the county and tried to get a copy of the plans. Not a rendition, but a copy of the plans that they tell us. Mr. Tennyson can argue this point with me, but I believe that anything regarding real estate has to be in writing. All I heard is what Mr. Israel said. This is Tupperware. I think we're rushed to a special meeting. I've been here 15 years. I don't remember a special meeting of the executive board. What's happening here? Why the push? I heard, and I don't agree with my fellow officers, including Stewart, I believe that we're buying into a major problem that we don't need. I also believe from a financial standpoint, we now heard it's going to be 660 units or what. When we started this, it was 800 and change. At that point, the average selling price was gonna be 200,000 to 300,000. I also remember an article said that when Kotler bought it, the dirt is gonna be, there's gonna be a shovel in there in 6 months. That's a farce. Ladies and gentlemen, my guess, and I'm sending it to a separate architect to take a look and say that the houses are gonna go from 300,000 to 500,000. 300,000 to 500,000, okay. I picked the middle number, 400,000. 400,000 times 600 and some units. I would guess with all the upcharges that happens all the time in the construction field, we're looking at 250 to 350 million dollars gross sales for copper. They originally offered us, let's not forget, $250,000. When you break down this, and I asked to have it, I don't want to render an opinion, I think this is a very taxable transaction. And I also feel the income that you would get from their contribution would be taxable. So what does it get down to? I went through one of the numbers, one of the gentlemen in this room. We're talking what? $150 per unit? Why wasn't this work done before? Why are we getting rushed into it? It's very simple. The market is moving. If in fact Kotler has an alternate plan, let him use it. Because any plan, I'm advised, will take an extra 2 years at least to get approved if it gets approved. And let us not forget, the general overall feeling, 5,000 cards went in the past, that the change from the golf course will change our way of life. And that was a moving factor. I spoke to just yesterday the chairman of the committee that was. Unfortunately, the committee dissipated, and the chairman is over 90 years, and she left. What did we fight for? Did we fight for a few dollars when we're sitting on over $11 million? And I've been obstacle after obstacle to get us 300,000 to 500,000 over a period of time. We've already lost 200,000 in pre-taxing. Sorry, isn't this Robert's rules? My feeling is it is too early to get the decision. If you read our engineer's report, he's gotten no cooperation from Kotler. No. Why should we bend over until he or whoever we're paying gets the information they need to really tell us what this is going? What happens if we just say right now, Mr. Kotler, our engineer says, we haven't gotten cooperation. Give him what he needs. What if you need a certified letter from Kotler to get their plans? Mr. Kotler, give us a certified letter of let's see what you really are going to build. What are we rushing in for? Peanuts. I used a different word last time, but I'm going to be nicer. Peanuts. And I think it's up to everybody that we do the best due diligence we can get for an agreement that's going to affect those who are going after us for years and years and years. Our vote will not only be for tomorrow, it will be for years. So that...
Okay, you already made your point, and...
How do you know I made my point?
You've been talking. Let's get other people to respond to your comments.
Listen,
Go ahead.
You're so engrossed in this thing that you have to carry your opinion. It's the nonsense.
2 points. Our vote is merely a recommendation. And secondly, one of the emails said that Mr. McLeod, who is in charge of Kolter's building project, hopes to submit to Palm Beach County their plan for building later this month. I feel that means that he is submitting it. They are going to build, whether or not we accept the canal or not.
I agree.
And this is our chance to get the 750K and the 15%. Otherwise, as I just said, they're gonna go and build and dig their own, period.
All right, listen, I'm gonna now go to the next phase. I'm gonna jump this to Rod. I think Rod has some prepared statements for us. Rod, you good?
I'm here.
All right, it's all you.
Good morning to everyone. I don't know if you all realize that, but I started working on, well, Donald mentioned that we discussed this for so many years we can't remember on drainage in Century Village, and I started 47 years ago when I first became general counsel, preaching about we've got to do something about the drainage system in Century Village. And I've been saying that for those 47 years. Just as an example, I'm up here in Maine right now, and my neighboring state, Vermont, just had an incredible extreme weather event. They dropped 9 inches of rain in just a few hours, and the flooding was incredible. You've seen the reports from California of extreme rain events and what it's done there. Century Village is not immune from those. Those events are going to increase in severity, whether we like it or not. And when that happens, we better have our drainage system in top-notch condition. If we don't, we are going to see some of those same disasters. And that's why we're here today, is to stop kicking the can down the road on drainage, but to do something about it, and do something about it now and quickly, because the event can happen at any time, whether it be a hurricane or just extreme rainfall. We need to do something now. Now, the reason I think that we've got a pretty good deal here with Kolter is because we get 3 things. And one thing we mentioned just a little bit, but which is very important, and that is for a long bunch of technical reasons, which I won't go into, we discovered that we do not have clear title to the dam and weir system and the small canal that reaches into the Lake Worth Drainage District's outflow. This week I got, pursuant to this agreement, the Kolter had agreed to start, even though we haven't got a signed agreement yet, because they thought this was such an important thing. We signed an agreement, a side agreement, where they would pay for and initiate an action in Palm Beach County courts to quiet title, so that UCO would have a clear title to the dam, weir, and outflow properties, which is essential to how we drain Century Village. I can report to you that that lawsuit was filed on our behalf at Kolter's total expense just this week. It's now in the works, and hopefully within a month or 2 we will have clear title to those properties. And that's part of this agreement too. If we don't do this agreement, they will withdraw from that lawsuit and we'll have to do it ourselves. Secondly, we of course, as we have mentioned, they will pay up to $750,000 towards this project. And that's real money. That's money that does not come out of the pockets of the residents of Century Village. It will be guaranteed, it will be upfront money in a special account that will be managed by UCO. And it will be designed to cover what our engineers say is the maximum amount of the project, which is $1.5 million. And the third thing that I think makes this a good deal for the residents of the village, and that is it has an ongoing provision that says once the renovation of the South Canal is completed, we will set up a reserve fund, which for over a 30-year reserve fund. So when the South Canal needs renovations or maintenance again in the future, we will have the fund there to get it done. So I think all these three things are really in our favor. Now, I know that everybody says, well, maybe we can cut a better deal. And maybe we can make them do this, and maybe we can make them do that. I don't think that's in the cards. I've been negotiating this thing with their lawyers and with the Kolter principals for 6 months. And they have pretty much given us what we've demanded, but we are at our limit. I think any attempt to try to renegotiate the contract at this time, I think they'll take a walk. I don't know that for sure, but boy, that's the feeling I get. I think now is the time for us to cut a deal and let's fix these canals. You know, who knows what the hurricane season is going to bring. Let's get them fixed now. So if there's any questions, I'm glad to answer.
Dan, you had your hands up just earlier. Did you want to?
Yeah, where's the mic?
It's coming, it's coming.
First of all, today I have 2 parts here. First of all, we're talking about the drainage only today, nothing about the plans. But if I recall, many years ago, Walden did present to the village a plan for the whole village, and it was like oasis in the movies. They
It was
even
Disney
said-
World.
Yeah, and they said that they're even gonna put a lake between us and the project there. But you mentioned 6,000 units. It looks to me a little bit congested.
621, I believe the current number is, which
So
is a reduction. That's a reduction from the original approval of 707.
Okay, so if we're talking just about today, I think no other choice.
Yeah, I remember that plan, Dan. The only thing missing from it was a Ferris wheel. Well, we're not getting it. Anybody else before we, yes, Tom?
Richard, wait, don't Rich.
For Mr. Tennyson.
Rich?
For Mr. Tennyson, if he can give us an estimate, if Kolter withdraws, if we refuse them, what would it cost us to gain clear title that they are now paying to get? Can he give us any estimate?
So what's that work worth, Rod?
We costed that out to several other law firms, and they were afraid to give an exact cost because they don't know what the reaction is to the defendants in the lawsuit. But the monies went up to $20,000-$30,000 if it turns into a real Donnybrook, so it's not cheap.
Okay.
That's money we get, because they're doing it.
He's doing it now, so the work's happening. All right.
Again, it's conditioned upon continuing the lawsuit that we've got to deal with them on this contract.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So you're saying...
Take the mic.
Wait. Take the mic.
Okay, Jean Berman again. So if you're saying that clearing the title requires a lawsuit, who exactly is getting sued? Who's the defendant in this?
I can answer that one. It's the current and defunct owners of various parcels along the way. Some of them don't even exist anymore. And I think the county has a piece of the Okeechobee part. So yeah, it's, in some cases, there's defunct entities, in some cases, it's other entities. That's about right, Ron?
Yeah, and usually in an action to quiet title, most of these defunct companies default. And we're hoping they do, and there are none of them others show up. But you never know. So, but I'm glad it started. We've got to do this.
All right, guys, last shot. Yes, Joe.
Who is,
According to the agreement that we understand it, it'll be 85% UCO, 15% homeowners association.
On the future annual maintenance.
Do you have any idea what 85% is going to be, dollars and cents wise, for us?
I don't know. It was hard enough to get an estimate just on the initial, all right, I'll take a stab. I would say I spend on the whole village with drainage, averaging out maybe 20, 30K a year. So if that helps.
What helps is the books. And I'm in the process of figuring it out. And I'm analyzing 10 years. 10 years, I don't see a major number because it takes a long time because all the postings didn't separate the two canals. But even if you put it together, you're not talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in 10 years. And my other question is, if this didn't come up and the canal's in such shitty shape, why haven't we done it before? We've got the money. We have the money, and being restricted to earn money, it makes no sense.
All right, so that's definitely off the agenda, so we're gonna cut.
I don't care what you say, Donald. You are so flawless, it's suspect.
Oh, I don't make any play of it. Yeah, I am for the agreement.
Donald,
Yes, sir.
we have Attorney Tennyson there. Why don't we just ask him how they came up with the 15% figure?
Get it right.
Let me tell you how it is. Whenever a new HOA, such as the townhomes, is created, and they are to enter into a contract with another entity, and that contract basically imposes a financial obligation on those 621 units. Under Chapter 720 Florida statutes, that contract must be, quote, fair and reasonable.
Thank you.
I researched what that meant and talked with the engineers on what is the benefits between what our residents get versus what the HOA townhome residents will get. And we all agreed that 15% to 85% was a fair and reasonable split based on benefit.
Okay, thanks, Rod.
Can we call the question?
I was just about to suggest that. No, I think that's it, Doc. The question's been called.
It hasn't been motioned.
Well, that's what we're gonna do. Let's do a motion.
I make a motion that we accept the drainage agreement with Kolter.
Wait.
Richard, here, honey, you need that.
I make a motion that we accept the drainage agreement with Kolter.
I second.
Multiple seconds.
Yay.
I'm giving it to Gloria.
I'm sorry. Your first time.
I'm done.
Joanne, I can give you the full title if you want to write it all out.
We're gonna take a vote now unless there is commentary on this. Yes.
Yeah. Was the mic?
Here.
I understand that WPRF is actually owning, so once we have the lawyer here, anything new or the title that we want to be, is that going to be ours, WPRF? How are they involved in this?
Catch that, Ron?
Yeah, the title to this, under the lawsuit, the title, we're asking the court to place title in UCO.
So you go.
Okay, let's take the vote.
We have a motion from Richard Handelsman, seconded by Gloria Tart, that to accept the drainage agreement with Kolter Homes as presented. Peter Amato?
Yes.
Diane Handelman?
Yes.
Kate Benoit?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Michael Bunk?
Yes.
Marilyn Curtis?
Yes.
Maureen DeBeguer?
Yes.
Ruth Dries?
Yes.
David Fornes?
David, you're up. David,
Again.
what's your answer? Yes, thank you.
David Fornes answered yes over the phone. George Franklin?
Yes.
Dan Gladstone?
Yes.
Richard Handelsman?
Yes.
Kelly Jensen,
Yes.
Bobby Levin, Joyce Reese,
Yes.
Jeffrey Skeen,
Yes.
Jerry Zatowski,
Yes.
Gloria Tart,
Yes.
Mary Walsh,
Yes.
Ed Grossman,
No.
Stuart Richland,
Yes.
David Boaz,
Yes.
and I vote yes, and the motion carries.
Thank you very much, everybody. It's now 10:49. I'm glad we got this finished so that everybody could go to the store to get what they need before it starts raining again. And thank you very much for being here. We really appreciate your participation. And this issue will go on to the delegate assembly coming up.
Rob says thank you.
What's on the agenda? Anything important? So far, nothing. Okay, so nothing
I think there's a clear answer there.
I got it.